sister and I were at an event, and Mandisa was singing. It was really loud, and she was getting everyone pumped up, and was doing a cover of All the Single Ladies. And so she was like, okay, all my single ladies, throw your hands in the air. So me and my friend threw our hands up, and so did my sister, who's definitely not single. She had been married for years. I think she had 5 kids at that point, and we both just look over and are like, what is going on? What is she doing? Which, I mean, she just didn't know what they said because she couldn't hear, and she was like, oh, they're raising their hands. That looks fun. Let me join in. So I tell this story because it reminds me of something that I was taught in my marriage and family class in college. And the instructor was saying that people who are single want to be married, but people who are married want to be single. And I was like, that's such a horrible way to live. And that's kind of why I am doing this video series and why I named it Happily Single to Happily Married. Because I've also heard about, like people would always say when you're single, they're like, if you're not happy when you're single, then you won't be happy just because you're married. And I thought that was really good advice. And so I did enjoy my years of being single. I was single for 29 years, and it was awesome. I'm so thankful for that time in my life. And so one thing, though, during that time is that I read a lot of books about marriage. And even though I wasn't sure if I would get married or not, it actually did help me in other relationships too, so it wasn't a waste even if I never got married. But I was reading those and I realized I never found a book that was written by someone who had only been married for a year, or who wrote it during their first year of marriage. It was always by someone who'd been married maybe 4 or 5 at the least, and sometimes 30, 40 plus years, which is good, and it was valuable, but it also talked about a lot of stuff that wasn't relevant to me, such as having kids and dealing with those situations. And I always wanted a book that was, it had those details fresh from the first year. So they're not looking back and just remembering the major things, but those little things that only happen, or mostly just happen during that first year before all these conflicts start being worked out, or before there's so much built up that there's such a huge backstory with it. And so I have been married for about 15 months now, but that's what I did. I wrote a book during my first year of marriage to document that and talk about that very first stage of marriage, which so many people talk about as being important and helping you lay a good foundation. And so I really wanted to talk to singles about being happy with where you are now, but also preparing for your marriage now and not just waiting until you're already married. So I've been taking questions from people who are single, and you can ask yours anonymously using the link in the description, and then that way I can talk more about the things that matter to you. But one of the questions was that they like to ask newlyweds how they met, which I realized that was always one of my favorite questions to ask people. And so that's what I'll be sharing in my next video, how my husband and I met. But I'm also going to share in this 10-part video series how I overcame my fear and pessimism about marriage, and how I knew I found someone worth marrying. I'll be sharing what I loved about being single and how that changed once I got married. I'm going to share something better than date night, at least in my opinion, and what I learned from interviewing a bunch of couples that are happy and have been married anywhere from 2 to 50 years. And I'm going to share my reflections on my first year of marriage. So if this sounds like something you'd enjoy, make sure that you subscribe so you can keep up with the whole series. Thanks.